I don't like conflict. I like to work things out right away. Well, Tom had a relationship with his dad that was pretty full of friction. We had songs, a lot of those bands, there were good players all over the place, but there were a few people writing songs, but nobody was really writing good songs like Tom was, or like I was with him. Kind of had me checkmate, I did my big speech and he just looked at me like, okay, Mike, but I'm Tom Petty. And I started to say, well, but I'm Mike Campbell, but I knew what he would say. Well, nobody knows who the hell that is. So Tom was brilliant that way. He had a way of just controlling the situation, but he was right,
Welcome to Yeah, with Lisa, Phil, and Aaron, minus Lisa. Lisa won't be with us tonight. She sends her regards, but she's feeling under the weather, and she was going to use this opportunity to mend.
Get well soon, Lisa.
Thank you, Aaron. But we're
Get
doing.
Well soon, Lisa.
Thea says, "Get well, Lisa." So we're doing another Between the Covers. We haven't done this in quite a while, but my favorites, of course, all my favorite episodes are music related, and so it goes to show that the books that I like to read about music are my favorites also. So I was really anxious to do this one, and Thea recommended something before it was even published, so we eagerly awaited.
I did.
Yeah.
I was so excited about this one that I suggested it almost when it was announced that it was coming out months ago.
Still put it off to the last possible second.
Well, that's your style, Aaron.
Yeah,
it is.
Well, that's the way he used to do his homework. He'd come into school, he'd always be doing his papers at like 6:30, 7 a.m. with a Dr. Pepper, sitting there writing in long form his papers.
And Doritos, yeah.
He is one of my kind, man. Dr. Pepper in the morning, no coffee, Dr. Pepper.
Right, Dr. Depper.
What was that gym teacher's name that was always in the Mr. Orloff?
Yeah.
You must have an ironclad stomach, son.
No, I'm just not 60 years old.
But enough Dr. Pepper will eat through it.
Right. But so we're glad to have Thea back. She's one of our favorite guests.
That we have joined the antisocial network.
Yeah. Mask up, stay 6 feet apart.
Yeah, right.
From the Rock and Roll Heaven podcasts.
Physical media.
She's got that nice looking book right there with Mike Campbell's face on it.
And
got it signed.
Nice.
Autographed.
Sweet.
Complete with JSA authentication.
Fantastic.
Yep.
So
I don't know what that is, but okay.
So JSA is the world's most trusted autograph memorabilia authenticator. And I buy most of my autographed autobiographies from a company called Premier Collectibles.
They stand for just signature authentication?
No, it's like James Spence or something like that.
Mine's better.
It is. So that's who I tend to buy most of my autographed books from.
So you bought that one already autographed. You didn't buy the book
Correct. But I know his autograph extremely well because I have multiple items autographed by him. I've met him in person 3 times, all that stuff. So cool. They don't hike the price up incredibly.
In that case, I could see buying it already autographed if you've already met him and had him autographed for you. Yeah. Sure.
So I was glad to get this one. And the nice thing about Premier Collectibles, a little bit of a plug for Premier Collectibles. I have no affiliation with them. I've just used them as a consumer for years and years now. They don't jack the price of the autographed merchandise up like a lot of other places do. It's maybe a few dollars over the list price, which is fine by me. And they added a new service where you could get authentication. It's normally like $24 an item for JSA authentication, and you have to mail it to them and pay to have it mailed back. But they have an arrangement now with Premier Collectibles. It's like $12 for the authentication. And I'm like, that's a no-brainer.
Worth the price. Huh?
Yeah.
But you may have had an opportunity to have him sign it personally. I mean, you've met him 3 times, you said, right? With you kind of to the point that he knows you when he sees you, right?
Yeah, he does.
Mike
Yep,
knows
he
you.
knows who I am.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And there could be an opportunity in the future for me to meet him again, but he's getting old.
75.
I just want, yeah, he's getting up there. You know, he'll never grow up. But
He said he got his record contract at 71, something like that.
Yeah, his own record contract, right? So I just didn't want
to finish the book 15 minutes before the show.
Right.
Sure,
You got all the little details squarely in your brain right now.
Yeah, as where I intended to completely re-listen to it because I've listened to it and read it, and I was trying to listen to it again, but time ran out. So I grabbed the book just so I could kind of go back and look through some things, while we're doing this.
Right.
But yeah, it was really well done. I was really happy with it.
Yeah.
My wife was listening to it. She only got about halfway through, but she said he speaks so slowly it drives her nuts.
Yeah, he speaks in that southern drawl kind of way.
Well, I don't know if he's always been
that
way, but he's got kind of a grandpa voice now.
He does.
I don't know. Yeah, you can imagine him sitting there whittling a piece of wood or something while he's telling these tales and shit. But but I liked that. I found it, because I read that speed.
Like Grandpa Walton. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But it reminded me that the speed. I shouldn't reveal this because it's probably a sign of my intelligence level. But that's kind of the speed at which I read. It's like I kind of listen. But I enjoyed that pace. I thought that the book was. It started where it should at the beginning. It didn't waste a lot of time talking about his childhood and things, but it did talk about his introduction to the guitar. And
Yep.
Mike met a mysterious, axe slinger one day, I guess, down by the railroad or something, or out in the country.
Yeah.
And the guy picked Mike's guitar up and started just shredding, and just like playing God knows what, Johnny Be Good or something. I don't know what it was, but then handed it back to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, that was a catalyst for him at the very beginning that he really wanted to pursue a career. At
And he
least,
never saw the guy again.
right. But he looked the part, like he was he looked like the greaser, I guess. He looked like Elvis or something, in that mold, I guess. And so that's interesting. That's kind of a crossroads moment for him.
Yep.
He's got a theme of people drifting in and disappearing, drifting in, gifting him something and disappearing.
Yeah. What was that
his,
Mormon kid or whatever that felt compelled to give him that guitar?
Yeah, because he knew it would be heard. And it's like the
Right.
free falling guitar.
Right.
I can't remember if that was the Mormon kid. He was some kind of religious kid.
Well, he loved his guitar. Mike, he obviously loves his guitars. He could name them all. I guess he probably still possesses all of them. It's not like he's Pete Townsend up there beating them to death or anything. Um, but I thought it was interesting the way he talked about the broadcaster, the Rickenbacker, the
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he
The
had an
Gretsch.
MG. Yeah, the
Yep.
Gretsch. And
Oh, the Gretsch is sexy.
he seemed to, he seemed to really love his guitars. And when
And the gold top is the other one.
Yes, that gold top is amazing too. I saw the gold top in person.
well, which is the one
I
that
just read this like 5 pages ago. He was it was Tom's birthday and he was at some event. No, it was a Dirty Knobs show. And he had Chinny, is that his name? The Chinner.
Chinner.
Yeah, Chinner set up the Rickenbacker, the gold top, and the broadcaster. And then he went out and did a little public speaking, which he doesn't usually do, I guess, and
No.
talked about each of the guitars and why he was doing it.
right.
Yeah. I'll tell you this. I've been a fan of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers for a long, 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 long time. And Mike Campbell has just always been one of my favorite guitar players. And I've loved watching him grow as a front man, not just as a front man on stage, but like as a front man doing interviews, talking to
Yeah.
people, being more
Was a band
personable.
leader.
Yeah, he's great. He's really come into his own.
Right.
But I can totally tell why he was not allowed to sing a note in Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers because he sounds
Yeah.
so damn much like Tom.
Stevie Nicks got him a voice coach so he could do "Oh Well."
Yeah. And he did
Yeah.
it well. That was
That's
really cool to see live
yeah.
because I
That's
saw
something
him
he
on
could
the
almost rap, you know?
yeah. I
He
call
could
it the
spoken
Fleetwood.
word that one.
Yeah, and I call that the Fleetwood Mike tour because that was the tour where they
Yeah.
ousted Lindsay and they hired in Mike Campbell for lead guitar and Neil Finn for vocals. So that was when I had the opportunity to have that lovely meet and greet before the show with him and his wife. Um, and I got to see the guitars and hold my favorite guitar of his, which is the SG. Um, but yeah, it was so great to see him do all well. I loved that.
Well,
What's your first Tom Petty memory? Do you remember the first time you've experienced Tom Petty? I do.
Yes, I do too. Do you want to go first or do you want me to?
I asked the question, so you go first.
Okay. So my first memory of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers is as, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years old, watching MTV and watching this weird music video come up that had this long intro. And they came in on this little spaceship kind of thing, and it had all this weird, like, spacey music. And the guys all get out of their little machines and stuff, and they go into this room and they dust things off and it's like out in the desert and all that stuff and they pick up the guitars and it's the video for You Got Lucky.
Oh
Um,
wow.
Phil and I were in high school when that came out. Yeah.
Yeah, I was knee deep in Tom. I knew him pretty well by then. My first, I'll go ahead with my first one then, if since it wasn't a personal experience, but just
Yeah.
seeing Refugee on Night Flight. I mean, that video was cool. I mean, it was just really cool. It was dark, they were hanging out at this like kind of seedy looking, I guess the studio, the sound studio. It was like Tom
Yep.
was out smoking a cigarette or something, and he, the whole music video just was really fluid and matched to the song really well. And I love the interplay between Stan and Tom,
Sure,
and
sure. and,
yeah,
and it was like he was rapping in that video.
right. I like the voice. Yeah, I like the way he sung that. It was a great
Yeah.
song.
That's same song for me, but different occasion. He was the musical guest on SNL and did Refugee.
Okay.
Had
Awesome.
to be 79. It was the one year I lived in the house that Phil's wife lived in before me.
Oh
Oh,
wow,
okay.
he was
When
on
I was
SNL in the 70s.
Yeah, late 70s.
Damn.
When did Damn the Torpedoes come out? 78?
uh Let me look, let me consult the can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good,
We
making
just
sure I
can't see
can.
you anymore.
I know I saw
Yeah,
that
I'm
one,
just
Aaron, because I saw every episode of SNL all the way up till probably 2000 something. So I know I
Yeah,
saw it,
and
but
it led to a they call it a mondegreen, I think, when you get the words wrong.
mhm.
For my little sister Heidi, she used to say, "Hey, hey, a little lower, refugee." Which
so they came out with the self-titled album in 1976. And then Damn the Torpedoes was 1979.
79, that sounds right. That's what
Yeah.
I said, I think. 'Cause That's
Yeah.
that's when I'd have been
Yep.
living in that house.
And I am looking up SNL, not doubting you, just me wanting to,
Yeah.
because I have
but
no clue.
I guess so Mike went off to Gainesville, Florida to go to University of Florida in part to get an education, in part to avoid the Vietnam War draft, which I
Yeah.
don't
And in
blame him
part to get
wanted.
out of Jacksonville.
Yeah, in part to get out of Jacksonville. And that's where he met Tom. And Tom was already experienced musician. Um, but he really liked the way Mike played guitar, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Um, so he saw he had a talent there that he wanted to bring into his orbit. And I don't know, did Mudcrutch exist already, or is this the beginning of Mudcrutch?
I would have to consult the petty archives on that.
I
Yeah.
I
Because
think they
that
had
gets a little,
another band. They had other names before Mudcrutch.
They
Yeah.
had Epics before
Epics, the
Mudcrutch.
Epics.
Yep. So let's go. There's a really neat website called the Petty Archives, which is
Hmm.
amazing. So let me look here.
Well, and
So
from what I can recall, he said something about they kind of practice on a song called "Turd."
Yeah.
Did
yeah,
that kind of help them improve musically the way that they abuse that song, I guess? But
yep. Mudcrutch was active from 1970.
okay,
So, and it looks like Mike Campbell joined in 70.
okay.
Yep.
And so Tom convinced Mike, forget about this school bullshit. Don't worry about the draft. Let's just go rock out. And they formed Mud Crutch. And I guess they added Benmont Tench at that point, and he was kind of a wonderkind. He was like a 17-year-old kid that was um, not even
think
necessarily legal in the bars that he was
I
performing
think
at.
Benmont had only the first go round had only had one performance with Mudcrutch.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
They
maybe
were
I'm
like
getting ahead of
he was
myself
like
here.
their biggest fan,
Hmm.
Yep.
and when they reformed, he was in Mudcrutch. But he was like thrilled to death that they reformed Mudcrutch so he could be in his favorite band.
And he came from a
And I don't,
go
sorry, go
ahead,
ahead.
Thea. Well, he came
I
from a
don't remember.
musical family, right? I mean, he came from like they were classically trained musicians and stuff. He was really fantastic. Both Mike and Tom wanted him in the band. So I'm sorry, Thea. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, 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 you're good. It's hard. I can't get the video to come back. So, can you guys see me?
No,
No,
Dang it.
it's
Let me
okay.
see if I can. Sorry about that.
no, it's all
Okay.
right.
Um, let's zoom. So, wait. So I don't remember if Mike covered it. I think Mike covered it a little bit in the book as well, but that story about how Benmont was supposed to go to college. And Tom Petty sat down with Benmont Tench Jr., which was the third's dad, who
Yeah.
was a judge, and convinced him to let Benmont go off with him. And
So
that's how
give it
he
a
got
year,
Benmont.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Give it a
That was one of
year,
the
and
things
worst
I
case, he comes back and goes back to school, but he had no intention of going back
exactly.
to school.
Right.
No, none. But that was one of the things I really enjoyed about this book, to be honest with you, is I was afraid that it was going to be a regurgitation of the stories that we knew. And it was not that. So what was amazing though is the few stories that there was overlap with from what we've heard in the different Tom books and so on, and the different stories and documentaries and everything. It was totally told from a different point of view. So it
Right.
didn't feel like a regurgitation of the same old shit.
I didn't read
Oh,
any Tom books, but I did see the one document, the Bogdanovich one. Is it Running Down a
yep.
Dream?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. That
That
is
was
the definitive one.
Yeah, back when it came out, you know, like that year anyway.
that yeah,
Yeah.
that was really good. That chronicled the whole journey they took from Gainesville out to LA and really just knocked on doors and was trying to get their tape listened to and got their doors slammed in their face a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
it was really a lot of information. Um, but
Watch the Tom Petty beach party that they released. I think it's on Paramount now.
Oh yeah.
Uh, they released it to the movie theaters to begin with, and now it's available on Paramount. It's really good. It is really
Mike
good, but
was
there's a little
writing
bit
about how
more.
he played the theme song for that in one of their concerts on his last tour, I think Tom did.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's a good one to see
It's
too.
a
It's not
nice
as
bust
long as
out.
the Bogdanovich one.
mhm.
I love the Bogdanovich one, but it's a really good one too. So I recommend that.
I'd heard of the beach party. I didn't know if it was I just kind of imagined it was some kind of like MTV thing special or something that they did or some kind of. I didn't realize it was a documentary that would kind of add um, knowledge of the story or anything. But I'll
Well,
try to
I
check
believe
it
it
out.
was originally a documentary on that was done for MTV. Um, I think it was. And then there was definitely some updated stuff added to it, as
Yeah.
well as some interviews with like Adria Petty. Oh God, what's his nuts? Cameron Crowe. Mike did some speaking. I think Ben Munt spoke a little bit about it, things like that. So it's worth it.
Mhm.
Adria Benmont and what's his nuts?
Yeah. Sorry. Cameron Crowe is what's his nuts.
I know.
Hey, you guys invite me for a reason.
That's right.
That's
For the
funny.
what's
That
his
And it's
ties
nuts.
not.
in. I was thinking of Almost Famous when we were talking about Benmont, giving him a year
Mhm.
to travel and find out if, and then he can come back, that's kind of mirrors Cameron
Hey, you're
Crowe's
back.
story from Almost Famous a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I guess they started playing a club called Doves. It was a strip joint. Is it Doves or
Yep.
Doves? Yeah.
I
DUB
think that
Dubs.
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 Okay.
Yep.
And they became regulars there. That was like their main gig that they clutched onto in hopes that they could survive long
Yeah.
enough to to be discovered.
A strict covers only rule, no originals.
Right.
Hmm.
And the main thing there was they had to dodge the Schlitz beers that would fly through the air when they would obstruct the dancers and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
So it was pretty humiliating, probably. But
I think they brought in a reel to reel and recorded all the songs on the jukebox and learned them.
okay, cool.
I mean, that's ingenuity back then.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's the thing of that's the telltale of a band, right? There's a lot of bands that can do covers pretty well, but when you start writing your own songs, that's where Tom's genius came in, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that was
Absolutely.
um, I'm sure they
And
sounded
Mike
great,
too. Mike wrote a lot of the music.
right, right. But at this point, they had some songs, and I know they mentioned some songs, some of their earlier songs, but they weren't probably playing them at Dubs at that point,
No.
or anywhere else they would find work. But
No.
was Stan with them? Was Stan Lynch with them yet at that point? I can't
No,
remember.
I think Randall Marsh was their drummer at that point.
Okay. Because one of the biggest revelations I found from the book, I always wondered what happened with Stan Lynch. It's like I thought, there must
He's
have been
with
some kind of blow
he's with
up
Don Henley now, right?
Yeah.
So here's what I recall of the demise of Stan with the band. Stan says that he was getting older and he was like, well, how much longer can we go on doing this? We've done it all. And he was getting tired of it. There's also a crossover of when there was some tension with Stan and Tom. They butted heads a lot. Um, and then Tom was doing his Wildflowers album, and he had pretty much called in almost everybody from the Heartbreakers to come in and do stuff. Like he had Mike in there. I believe Ben Munt was in the studio. Maybe that was it. And then he was using other musicians for everything else. And he did not call in Stan. And I believe that was the ultimate ending.
Right.
Is Stan was really upset when he found out about it.
But in the book, they talked about he was off and on and off and on. He'd get fired. He'd come back. Tom would, accept him back after they went through some different drummers that
Yes.
didn't work out. And
A
um,
lot of stuff like that for sure.
yeah. And
Yep.
Mike just seems he doesn't really have too many cross words to say about anybody in this book. His personality is kind of like a gentle guy, kind of comes through in the book loud and clear.
Yeah,
And of
and you
course,
know what I loved about what I really liked about this is something that I picked up and I liked. Um, Instead of, I mean, he was very honest about his relationship with Tom, his friendship with Tom, co-captain and captain, their friendship forever, all of that. But he was also honest about, it sounds like Tom was kind of a dick in some ways. And without calling him out as a dick, he was honest about Tom's control and Tom's anger and things like that and how he treated people, things like that. But he did it in a very elegant way.
right.
Does that make sense? Did you guys pick up on that too?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not the
did
only
too.
one that picked up on that.
Well, I didn't know much about. All I know Tom from is the videos, the music.
Mhm.
I always thought he was this chill dude. He's, smokes weed. He's
Yep.
like real laid back. And you find out in the pages of this book that he's a businessman. He had aspirations. That he would sometimes make decisions that would and he knew he was going to piss people off, and he'd do it anyway. He was very forthcoming, and it was a side of him that you never really saw publicly. I thought that
Yeah,
was
I'm sorry. Here's what I found about his departure from the Heartbreakers, courtesy of Wikipedia. So take that for what you will. Um, Lynch expressed displeasure on several occasions while playing drums at Heartbreakers concert on tracks that were actually from Tom Petty's solo albums, which he had not played on. After increased tensions, Lynch left the group in 1994 with his last Heartbreakers gig occurring on October 2nd, 1994 at the Bridge School Benefit in Mountain View, California. It was immediately following this gig that Lynch left the band due to medical and personal differences with Petty. After his departure, Lynch moved back to Florida, where he partnered with longtime friend Don Henley and put together the Eagles reunion album, blah, 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 blah. That's the sanitized version of it. There was definitely more to it than that. And they do talk about it, to be honest with you, in, I want to say, the Running Down a Dream documentary.
Yep, that's the one I saw, and yeah, he's not happy.
That is the one. Yeah, that is the one where they kind of talk a little bit more about it. But it feels like Mike went into a little more detail in this. So history has told the truth.
Yeah. So, but like, there were things that we know happened. Like we know that Tom had a heroin addiction, but he did not. Mike did not really emphasize that in the book. He didn't
Nope.
feel like that was worth covering. There were probably a lot of things that went on
in the end.
In the end, yeah.
Oh,
okay. He didn't come through with a lot of sordid stories or anything, though. Like
No.
you found him passed out and in the studio or something, whatever. But
no, that's what I mean. He was a very
he talked about his physical condition though, and
yep,
how it deteriorated. Yeah, and they weren't making music much as often anymore.
Exactly. I just feel like he was honest about his experiences with Tom, and we got a little bit more shades of the truth about how it was working with Tom. But again, I just say he did it very elegantly.
Yeah.
My favorite parts were toward the end of the book, and they were all interactions with other people, like the Bob Dylan and George Harrison and Joe Strummer stories.
Oh my God. He also mentioned, oh my gosh, because he liked the Clash. There was somebody else he mentioned too. I have to go back and look. But yeah, he really got into some of the punk rock.
What about the Johnny Rotten when Stan grabbed Johnny Rotten by the lapel and had him against the wall? Was going to kick his ass.
Yeah. Yes, I loved it. Never heard Johnny Rotten tell that story.
No. But they thought that, a lot of people thought, I remember this from the doc, a lot of people thought that Tom Petty and Heartbreakers were sort of a punk band at one time.
Oh, yeah.
Because of when they came out and when they broke, yeah.
And they didn't know where to kind of pigeonhole the sound. The sound was kind of, it wasn't like 2-minute songs, like,
Well, the fact that they blew up in England made them kind of punk rock, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Because that is where they blew up. I want to find that. Go ahead and continue. I'll jump in when I find it.
Well, we should say these early albums. Okay, so let's kind of move along because the early albums, the first album was just called Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, right?
Yes, the self-titled was the one in 1976.
And I think it had I Need to Know. That was kind of the big hit off of that.
Didn't that have Breakdown?
Breakdown.
I believe
Breakdown. Yes, you're right. But the second album was Full Moon Fever.
No, Full Moon Fever
is
a
much later one.
Petty book. So it's a solo Petty album. The second one was Damn the Torpedoes.
Damn the Torpedoes.
No, that's the third one. That's the Jimmy Iovine one.
Oh.
And he works his magic on third albums.
Okay.
Okay.
So there's one in between those two.
Well, I guess I should have put down the discography.
All right.
But that's
I'm searching it now.
That's really not
that was their the story was
Long After Dark. So that no, it wasn't Long After Dark. No. It was the self-titled in 76. Then they did Damn the Torpedoes in 79. Long After Dark was 82. Hard Promises was 81. I don't think that there was. I think the sophomore album is what Jimmy Iovine is known for, not the third one.
Well, Damn
I'll
the
check that.
Torpedoes, that was huge, right? I mean, that was like
Yes.
that really took them to the next level.
Yeah.
And I think that Mike mentioned that Tom posed with one of his favorite guitars. I can't remember if it was the Rickenbacker or whichever one it was. He was like
The Broadcaster.
on the cover of that one. Yeah.
Oh no, the Rickenbacker. It's the Rickenbacker.
Let's see. Damn the Torpedoes. You know, the numbers, a lot of these ended up on their greatest hits album, which was also extremely popular. Like, you know, it's
Yeah,
got,
he did. Sorry, he did. Jimmy Iovine did do Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Damn the Torpedoes.
Yeah, I know he did Damn the Torpedoes, but I thought it was the third album.
Mm-mm.
Refugee, Here Comes My Girl, Even the Losers.
Yep.
Don't Do Me Like That. Just, you know, just those alone. I mean, all those ended up on that. Because that was like my second wave of Tom Petty, I guess, is when I got the greatest hits album. Like maybe somebody bought me an Apple prepaid card for Christmas or something, and
Oh, so that's
Okay.
much later.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was much later. Yeah. Well, it's not like I didn't, you know, I had
He had a radio.
yeah. Right. I knew that, you know, Free Falling and all that stuff, and well familiar with, you know, the
Yeah,
most
they did
popular
the
stuff.
greatest hits album, and they owed one more song,
Yeah,
and
they
that's the
put
album that I believe they put Last Dance with Mary Jane on.
yeah, they did two songs. They also did a cover song.
That's right. That's right. You got it.
And Stan was basically out of the band at that point, but they brought him back in for Last Dance with Mary Jane.
Yep.
Okay.
And that was his
Because they just
last
needed
performance
Stan
as a
for it.
Heartbreaker.
Yeah.
But I
Yep.
think
Okay. So yeah, he had an encounter. Sorry, he had an encounter with Johnny Rotten of the Sex Pistols. Um, yeah, he did mention the Clash, and I think he mentioned the Ramones as well. I could be wrong.
He mentioned being in the studio with Rick Rubin and Johnny Cash, and Joe Strummer was over sitting in a corner singing lyrics to a Bob Marley song. I can't remember which one it was.
Redemption Song.
Redemption song.
Yep.
And
That is one of my favorite covers.
yeah, I guess he's rehearsing for a duet with Johnny Cash. He'd just been going in there just because he wanted to see and meet Johnny Cash.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh yeah. Oh, I
and
love
Mike
that.
sat down and talked to him and uncharacteristically opened up to him. He'd asked him, "How you doing?" And then he told him, and which is so unlike Mike.
I'm like, yeah.
And
like it's confessing or something.
he said something about heroines when the band always goes wrong or something like that. Is what Joe Strummer's response was, because his drummer had gotten addicted to heroin, and that was the downfall of the Clash.
Yeah. And I really loved his story about meeting Johnny Cash and just talking to Johnny Cash too.
Yeah.
We'll talk about his dad because that's a connection back to his dad, because his dad said that Cash, did he say he looked like the truth or he sounded like the truth?
He sounded like the truth. That sounds like the truth.
And he mentioned that at the outset of the book, and then when he met Cash, he reprised that comment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then Johnny Cash said sorry. He said, what song was it? Don't take your gun to town.
Yeah.
Yes, that's it.
What was their favorite song together of his? And he said, sorry, that's not on the set list tonight. And then he started playing it, and all the, what did you call it? The Outlaw. What's his, with Waylon and Chris
the
Outlaw.
The Highwaymen.
Highwaymen. They all picked it up, and they did it because of him, really.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It was cool.
Yeah, those encounters were cool,
Yeah,
and
that's great.
I know Aaron because you commented on it. Remember, he spoke up. His big idol, Mike's big idol, was Bob Dylan,
Mm.
and he got to spend time with Bob Dylan, quite a lot of time with Bob Dylan, apparently.
He
Oh
toured
yeah.
with him, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
and
Well, when Bob comes calling and asking your band to be his backup band,
Yeah,
you
the
don't say
the Heartbreakers were Bob Dylan's band, just like the Grateful Dead
yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Yep.
when I
and the band.
And then the same thing happened with Cash in the later years. When Cash comes and asks you to be the studio band for him
Yeah,
behind his cover albums, you don't say no.
no.
right, um, so let me see. The
Dave Grohl was almost the Heartbreakers drummer for a minute there.
I love that story. And oh my God, the cojones on Dave Grohl to say no to Tom Petty.
mhm.
And in Dave Grohl's book, we could actually cover that one of these days too. That's a really good one. Um, as unpopular as Dave Grohl is these days, I am learning to separate the artist from the man. Um, but he tells the story about that where they got him to fill in on SNL,
Yeah,
and I
I
mean, and
remember. I remember that SNL.
yep, I love that version of Honeybee. That thing just
Yeah,
jams. I mean, it is a barn burner with Dave Grohl on those drums,
Yeah,
and that's my favorite version of it. But
I've
Tom's
seen
like, "You
that.
want to be
Yeah,
my drummer?
that
You want
was
to be
one of
my
my
drummer?"
nominations for the Elite Eight. Is that a deep enough cut? Now I'm concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Well, it has nothing. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I
It's
agree.
not a
I
radio
agree.
hit.
I know
It
what I was
doesn't
trying to
matter.
say before when I went to the
The
outlaw
the
country.
assignment was deeper cuts.
Right, deeper cuts,
Yeah,
but I think it's deep
I
enough,
sympathize.
Aaron. I think
Yeah,
it's yeah,
Absolutely.
and it fucking rocks. It's a fucking great song. So,
yeah.
Oh, it's amazing.
um, but what I was trying to think before when I went to the Outlaw Country Festival when Lisa and I went to that last year, that was sort of like
Hmm.
the tattered remains of kind of what um uh the world that Mike is describing during that whole time with Dylan, Willie Nelson. Talking to
Hmm.
Willie Nelson, and at one point they were going to replace the Heartbreakers with Mellencamp, Mellencamp's band, and I was on the tour, and it was like Mellencamp was at the show that I was at, so I was like, well, that could have been a show that the Heartbreakers could be doing if they had been still around. And I wish they had been because it would have made it a hell of a lot better show than what I saw.
Yeah.
Dylan is like too old at this point, but um, anyway,
Who, Dylan?
I did not enjoy
Be cool
Dylan's
to see
set.
Dylan sing. If they did the Heartbreakers with Dylan instead of Petty.
Well, maybe I'd see
Mm,
that. Maybe I'd.
It's alright if you
nope.
love me.
Nope.
It's
Never.
alright if you don't.
Nope. Nope. Nope.
It lacked energy when
I
I
think
saw it.
Tom would have appreciated it.
He might have, but I would have had to have like had it on mute, watching it on YouTube or something, because I can't stand Dylan's voice. I love to read Dylan's lyrics. I
Yeah,
love them. They're poetry to me. They are amazing. I effing hate his voice. It is like nails on a chalkboard for me, except
it's
for
not
one
that far
song.
off from Petty's.
No, I disagree. Petty has melody,
They both have the art of nasal voice
but
control going.
but Dylan has no tone,
Yeah,
and I
Yeah.
hate that. The only song I'll listen to by Dylan is The Hurricane.
it's a
That's
good
it.
one.
I know what you're saying. I'm not that vigilant against his voice as some people are. It doesn't affect me that way, but to see him live now, it's just not that great.
Yeah,
It's too lifeless. And he doesn't sound like himself anymore either. He doesn't sing those
Yeah.
songs the same way anymore.
it's kind of how I felt
Oh,
when
go
Paul
ahead. Go,
Simon was
Aaron.
on the SNL 50th.
Yeah.
Hmm.
He's kind of, one of the, if I get a chance to see him, I should see him. And then I saw him perform, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's just too late.
Yeah. It's like
Well, and
LD and Will were talking about seeing, their concerts
they
coming up and they're going to
they
see,
got tickets,
yeah. And I'm like,
To
and I'm
that
see
sound
hoping.
pretty good.
to see Paul Simon?
Yeah,
Oh wow. I didn't know he's
absolutely.
touring.
Yeah. I hope he's everything she dream wants him to be. I get it.
Yeah.
Here's one, I'm considering, I'm hoping I can make the stars align and everything. Roger McGuinn is doing a show in Loveland, Colorado.
Cool.
And I adore Roger McGuinn. I love the Byrds. And that is one I feel like I have to go to. I love him. And he still sounds amazing.
He's back from Rio.
Yeah. And you know who produced that album, right? Back from Rio?
Is it Todd Rundgren?
No.
No. Who
Tom Petty.
produced it? Tom Petty, huh?
Yeah. Yep. So I'm thinking about it. He's doing a small theater in Loveland, Colorado, which is just a ski town. I'm going to see Loveland for the first time on June 6th because my gentleman friend and I are going to see my deep down underground rebel outlaw cowboy shit imaginary boyfriend Ryan Bingham again.
Oh yeah, Ryan Bingham. I see
Yeah.
him all over your feed,
Yeah.
all over your. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm always pimping his stuff out. I love him.
I have to check him out.
But
I
we're
don't
going
know
to
much
see
of
him.
stuff, but
Oh, I got you. I'll send you a live album, a live show they released a while back, which was really good. But yeah, I saw him in December in Vegas, and he was amazing. And then 6 months later, here we go. I get to see him again, but I'm going to Loveland, and it stinks because he's doing 4 shows in Colorado. He's doing one in Grand Junction, which I would love to go to, but unfortunately, that's like 4 or 5 hours away from here. He's doing another show in Colorado Springs, and it's like, I really don't want to go to Colorado Springs unless I have to. He's doing a show at Red Rocks, which is like, oh, Jesus H. Roosevelt Christ on a cracker. Why is my back still healing? Why can't I go to Red Rocks? So I can't go to Red Rocks. I don't think I could physically do it right now.
you love that venue, right? I've heard you talk about that too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Red Rocks is magic. Red Rocks has been my obsession since I was a little girl, and U2 released the VHS tape live at Red Rocks. I played that thing out so much it broke, and I threw a fit until my parents replaced it. I was obsessed with Red Rocks. And then I saw Stevie Nicks on the Wild Heart tour. She was at Red Rocks. I was obsessed with it then. So when I moved to Colorado, I moved here in January 30th of 2010. The first concert I went to at Red Rocks was in August of 2011, and it was Stevie Nicks.
Nice.
It was amazing.
Didn't Dave
And I
Matthews
saw,
do one of his live albums there?
I'm sure, but
Everybody's done a
sorry,
live album.
LD. Sorry, LD, but I would never go to Red Rocks to see Dave Matthews because no, thank you. I have a really deep disdain for Dave Matthews and Fish. Sorry, Aaron.
Oh boy.
You know, that kind of stuff. I know.
Aaron's
I know.
not a fighter. It doesn't matter.
And, you know, and it's all
My
good.
first Fish
It's all good.
concert, Dave Matthews was the opening act, but I didn't get there in time to see him.
Oh, I'm sorry, or maybe that's a good thing. I don't know.
So I've been
All
like
right,
double
then-
jeopardy for Thea.
My last
Fish.
Grateful Dead show, Dave Matthews was the opening act, and I missed him
Yeah.
because I was out on Shakedown Street.
Yeah.
And I finally
saw
saw Dave Matthews at a Horde festival in
a
90.
what festival?
Horde, HORDE,
gotta get that right.
Horizons of Rock developing everywhere.
Oh, okay.
I think Blues Traveler was instrumental in creating it, maybe John Popper or something.
John
But it
Hopper.
was
Hopper, right? Yeah.
Popper, yeah.
Popper, yeah.
Yeah. That's another one I'm not a fan of. I just don't
Yeah.
understand.
They
dance
weren't
bands.
they weren't on the tour that I was on, like the second or third Horde tour that I saw them at the Glen Helen Blockbuster Pavilion or whatever it was.
In Devore, right?
Could be.
Is it the one that's up? It's up. You have to go out by like.
Way the hell out is all I remember about it.
It's in the desert. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, fun fact. I know we're supposed to be talking about this book, but this is totally spinning into just like randomness here. Sorry, guys.
It's okay.
It's
I'm
kind of
cool with
how,
It's all good.
how we do.
I'm guilty of
right?
it.
You're
Yeah.
playing the Lisa part tonight. Going off on a
I'm
squirrel
doing.
here.
I got your backpack, girl, Lisa. I got you.
Yeah.
So I'm filling in for Lisa. So, a young admin Thea. This was in 2003. I lived in LA, and K-Rock had their second annual Inland Invasion. And the Inland Invasion 2 theme was 25 years of punk rock. If you had to pick a headliner of this show, it was the original Sex Pistols pre-Sid Vicious, the original band. Bad Religion, Social Distortion, TSOL, The Adolescents. I mean, you just name it. There was just Blink 182, whatever. Unwritten Law. It was a huge list of amazing punk rock at that show. It was in Devore, California, which if you look at the map is the very, very teensy bottom of Death Valley. I ended up getting heat stroke. I had one beer that day, early in the day, and I was like, it's just too hot. This was when we got there and started barbecuing our carne asada, which was amazing. I was like, I'm not even going to finish this beer. It's too hot. And I just started pounding water. I still passed out in a pit and woke up in a triage tent with an IV in my arm.
Oh boy.
So yes, I know that pavilion very well, Aaron.
That's no way to spend this festival there.
Well, they hydrated me back up, gave me a fresh gallon of water and recommended I leave. And I said, nope, not happening. Bad Religion hasn't played yet. And I went back out and just sipped on water the rest of the day.
Well, I'm sorry we missed Bad Religion and Social Distortion last year. I'm regretting that. I wish we'd have made that one,
but both bands are still touring. I don't know how much longer Social D will be touring, but Bad Religion is still going strong.
Right. Mike has health issues. Yeah.
He did. He had some kind of throat cancer or larynx cancer or something. And he went through treatment on it, and he's back.
Great. Well, we'll probably get a chance because the venue that is the Jay Brady Center seems to be a good venue that bands are trying to hit whenever they come through here. But a couple of other notes I made about the book.
Yep, please do.
He had a near-death experience where he
I forgot about that.
He started hitting some white powder like he thought it was some nose candy. It wound up being speed, and he restricted the blood flow to his intestines, and he almost died from that.
Yeah.
But I thought one of the biggest moments in the book to me, insightful, was when he approached Tom right after, I think it was Damn the Torpedoes, or it may have been after Full Moon Fever. And he was talking about, his contributions to the band, his writing contributions and,
And he was asking for a raise.
And Tom just kind of looked at him and said, yeah. So what? You're not Tom Petty. It's like pretty much saying, I'm Tom Petty and you're not, it's like, and
so he got like half and the Heartbreakers got the other half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought that was interesting. That's something that some people would be in a snit about. That's something that would really set off some people. It'd be like, they'd quit the band, of course, or they'd go on some kind of publicity tour airing all of your.
I'm sure it didn't sit well with Stan.
Yeah, didn't sit well with, yeah. But eventually, the way he described it from that point forward was that he learned to be stoic, to be patient. And in the end, some of the things that Tom fought for eventually culminated in a wealth that he could have never experienced without.
Sure.
So, and it wasn't just Tom, no. It was the producers, the management. They were painting it that way. It wasn't Mike Campbell and the Heartbreakers.
No.
Right.
No, I just the way Tom came across in some of those really kind of grinded my gears a bit. But I get it. It is what it is. But yeah, that was a little tough to read some of those things. Just about Tom.
Right. But it's his business. Were there any highlights that or turning points or catalyst moments that we haven't mentioned at this point?
I think I found a spot. Stan, nope, I hadn't found it yet. I was looking for something else. I liked the story where I just had it. Where his accountant had told him, here it is. At the end of the year, our accountant called Marcy and me in for a meeting. We sat across from him at his desk and he smiled. You had a good year. He wrote something on a piece of paper. He folded it and slid it across the table. I looked over at Marcy. She nodded at me. I reached over and picked up the paper. Marcy leaned over as I unfolded it. On the paper, the accountant had written a number. It was $450,000. I just stared at it. It might as well have been 4 million or 4 billion. I couldn't even imagine that much money. I thought of my mom loading boxes in the sweltering Save-A-Lot warehouse for $1 an hour. Saving up for a guitar, I swallowed hard and turned to Marcy, stunned. Marcy, we're rich. Well, said the accountant, that's gross, not net. He leaned over the desk and took the piece of paper back. Marcy and I watched as he jotted more figures down. He subtracted for management, taxes, and other expenses and fees. He pushed the paper back across the desk, and it was just over $150,000. Oh, wow, I said. What can we do? Write more songs, the accountant said. Most of that is from your publishing. Pay your taxes and be thankful. I loved that section.
Yeah. Little harsh reality, but still, that's a nice
Yeah,
little sum
grateful.
for somebody that comes from his beginnings,
Steve
Totally.
Vai always says that the best advice Frank Zappa gave him was keep control of your own publishing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And all of these, and I used to wonder, it used to kind of strike me wrong with everybody selling their catalogs. Like, didn't Dylan do it for a metric fleet of truckloads
Why not?
of
Why not at that
money?
age?
Yeah, and then Stevie Nicks did it, and Fleetwood Mac did it, and all that stuff. It's like, at their age, I can't blame them.
Yeah.
But good for them for holding on to it for as long as they did.
What was the lawsuit about, though, at the beginning of the band? Tom had to go to court, had to fight that. Was that over?
Yeah, the
song
one that
rights?
held up the release of Damn the Torpedoes.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's an interesting one. They called that one the YMCA tour, as in YMCA Records, because MCA Records was suing them over the album. And there's some great stories that are told about that. I think it's in the Bogdanovich documentary. But like Petty was in court and they said, well, what about guitars? He's like, well, I've got two. And they're like, well, what kind are they? He's like, a red one and a black one. And they would continue in the studios doing all the recording and everything. But I want to say, I can't remember who it was, but they would give all of the tapes to somebody who would hide them in undisclosed locations. And they held on to it until the lawsuit was over and they won the lawsuit, and then they released the album. Which album was that, though? I can't remember.
Damn the Torpedoes.
It was really early.
Was it Damn the Torpedoes? Okay.
Yeah. It's the book is just
Jimmy
loaded with all
Iovine
kind of
one.
anecdotes like that. It's just a really good read. I didn't take notes. Normally I take notes when I'm reading a book. I just didn't feel like I wanted to enjoy it. I just wanted to enjoy it and take it in. I feel like I absorbed it pretty good. Some
Same
names
here.
got lost.
I took some highlights, but I can't remember what they were. See.
Normally I'll get myself a paper copy of it and I'll highlight stuff, but I can't do that in my copy of it. I need to get another copy that's available for just reading and highlighting in. I do that with certain books that I really love.
Yeah.
But I can't deface this one because it's autographed.
The Beatles came out of nowhere right when we needed them most. They wanted to tell us something they thought we'd understand, and we did. That was my first highlight.
What about
Are you reading it digitally, like on a Kindle or something?
Yeah.
Well, maybe Admin Thea needs to kind of get out of the same camp as TJ2, the Deuce, and maybe get a Kindle that I can highlight stuff on.
Yeah.
Oh, he's talking about Whitney, his friend. He said he left in the morning, setting sail on a calm ocean without a cloud in the sky. He was never seen again. He sailed into the Bermuda Triangle and vanished. That just struck me as bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, was that literal or was that an
I'm pretty sure he's being literal.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, that was. There were so many little stories in there. Like I said,
the producer's on acid.
Yeah.
Don't get stepped on. You're the elephant. And don't let the elephant step on the mice, Mike.
Yeah.
Hey, are you guys on acid? He just nodded, smiling. Of course we're on acid. We're working. They went back in the control room. Noah came on and talked back and said, we're wrong. All right.
That was a really good story too. There were so many great stories in there. And I enjoyed that. And I just enjoyed his calm, I don't know, just calm go with the flow attitude about all of it and his perspective. And like I said, the stories that there was overlap on, I'm glad it didn't feel like a regurgitation. It was totally a different story coming from Mike.
More clarification than regurgitation,
Here
I
you go.
guess.
Yeah.
I looked up in there in the middle of the studio floor, grinning and glowing, suntanned and button-nosed, emerging from her raucous entourage as breathtaking as a California Botticelli, like Venus on a Coke spoon, in bell-bottom jeans and a flowing white satin kimono over a red halter top, stood the
Yep.
real one and only actual Stevie Nicks. She was tiny.
That was amazing. I
That is a
loved
great
that.
description. Yeah.
And I love one of the here's a take from the book that I really loved. He and Marcy have been married forever. And their relationship, it's nice to see how solid and consistent it's been through all the years.
Right. Like that video that you shared on the thread where he's doing I Want to Be
Hmm.
Sedated. That's
Oh, I
Marcy
love
behind the
that.
camera. And it's like,
Mhm.
Ba, 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 ba,
yeah.
ba. Yeah.
And then at the end, I forget what she said, but she said something at the end that kind of put her stamp on it, but it was pretty cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like in some of the Mike Campbell and the Dirty Knobs shows, she'll come out when they do songs,
Yeah. What are
certain
those
songs. There's
sounds? Whatever it is. What is
yeah,
it to say in
I'll
the
tell
beginning of
you.
that track?
It's just the normal noises
The
in
normal
here.
noises in here. That's what it
And the
is.
story about that is there was a washing machine that was going in the background and it kept coming up on the recording that they were doing and she's like, it's just the normal noises in here. So they
That's right.
added it to the album. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. All right. So
I got a
when
couple
we,
more highlights if
yeah,
you
go
want 'em.
ahead, Aaron. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to rush you.
That's all right. She had even told people that if we would have her, she would quit Fleetwood Mac on the spot to join the Heartbreakers. But one
Mhm.
tempestuous blonde was all we could handle.
Yes, that was great. That was a great line. I liked that too.
This was about
Could you
Bob
imagine
Dylan. Yeah,
Tom and Stevie?
Yeah.
Oof.
yeah, it wouldn't gone well.
Mm,
Mm-mm.
Bob Dylan. Tom and I were talking about songwriting with him once. Tom said, as soon as I get 3 verses of lyrics, I'm done. Bob said, no, don't do that. He said, don't ever stop when it's coming. He said, if the ideas are flowing, don't write 3 verses, write 43 and pick the best ones. That advice alone instantly changed how I wrote songs.
Yeah,
yeah.
that was
From,
great too.
from the mind of a master, I guess. Right.
Yeah. And that
Yeah,
Johnny Cash didn't just sound like the truth, he looked like the truth. He talked like the truth. He laughed like the truth. He listened like the truth. He sat beside you quietly like the truth.
yeah. Is that the part where where he met Cash?
Yeah,
Didn't he ended up, Mike ended up saying something to him about like his dad's favorite song or a song that reminds him of his dad. And then coincidentally,
yeah, then he played it
Cash,
with the
yeah,
Highwaymen.
Cash tells him, well, we don't normally do that one on this. And then they did.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
I guess Frank Zappa has a different interpretation, but he's out there. Remember?
Joe took a cup down from the shelf and dropped it in a bag of tea, and dropped a bag of tea into it. He poured water from the electric kettle. Joe Strummer made me a cup of tea.
Nice.
Yeah, that was so cool.
That was my last note.
That's an awesome.
All right.
I loved hearing all those little things about all the different people that he met out there. That just made me happy.
Yeah, that's
Right.
cool.
Right. That it doesn't put a bow on it on everything, and it doesn't make up for Tom's passing or anything like that. But it's
Um,
a good legacy to have to have more fabric, more an enriched story of the band, more understanding of what their roles were and everything. It's just a really good read.
Absolutely.
So
It really was. And I liked how he talked about his different members in the at the end of the book about his the Dirty Knobs.
hmm
Hmm.
He
right,
talks
right.
about Mike Log. I'm brain farting his first Matt Log, getting the call from AC/DC. He's like,
Yeah.
no, go.
Well, I mean, I didn't know he
He's a
had.
drummer in this little Australian band or some Australian R&B band called
Something like
AC/DC.
that.
I
Yeah.
had no idea he had co-written or written Boys of Summer.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Makes sense.
Yeah, Tom didn't want that one. That was a big
Nope.
part of Running Down the Dream.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And then that, like, when they do when he does Stop Dragging My Heart Around,
Mhm.
you know, and they had Insider on Hard, or Insider was on Hard Promises, and Stevie ended up with Stop Dragging My Heart Around, and which one ended up being the biggest hit?
Yep.
Stevie's.
Stevie's.
Yep.
Yep.
Should have just started off with that one. All right. So we've started doing this probably since the last time you've been on, Thea. We started doing Elite Eight mini
Yeah.
brackets. And
Okay.
are you up to it?
Of course.
Okay. We leave that open in case, you know. But anyway,
Yeah.
the topic
I
of
like
this
'em.
one is going to be deep cuts from the entirety of the Heartbreakers catalog. Originally, I was thinking like the
Okay.
first 6 albums, but nah. There's great songs all throughout the catalog. What does TJ say? He's like, there's not a bad album at
No,
all. You know, it's what
never.
the
Yeah. And
entire
no,
catalog.
no, I gave you my songs from the first 6.
Yeah.
Dang.
Well, some
And
of
I only
Aaron's
had,
came from later, so
oh, so many good ones.
yeah. Well, let's go ahead and this way we'll have some diversity. We'll
Yeah,
have from earlier
sure.
and later in the catalog. So our
Okay.
first matchup is Feel a Whole Lot Better versus Rhino Skin.
Feel a whole lot better.
Aaron.
Rhino Skin might be my number 1, number 2. Yeah.
That's a good
Okay.
song, but feel a whole lot better really rings better for me.
I feel kind of bad being the tiebreaker on the
I
very
just,
first one here,
I
but
just think of my little kids in the back seat singing, "You need elephant balls."
yeah.
Yeah.
I listened, you know, I'd heard it I'd heard it before, but I listened to it today after you listed it. I'm going to go with Feel a Whole Lot Better because that's actually my entry. So,
Cool.
and I thought, you know, I felt like that really sounded like the Birds. That really had a
Yes.
Birds
Yeah.
feel to it. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
that is where, you know, that comes
Yeah,
across loud and clear.
Rhino
It
Skin's a
really
more
does.
personal one for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we have Rebels versus Swingin' or Swingin'.
Oh,
Yeah.
shit. Oh, now my entry was Rebels and versus Swingin'. That's hard. I'm
My
gonna
entry
stick
was
with Rebels.
Swingin'.
Swinging's a great song.
So I'm going to be
Swinging for me.
so
Phil's going to be the tiebreaker, the heartbreaker
Oh,
tiebreaker
poor
every time.
Phil.
I do like Rebels. There's something about swinging. I love the song. God, without the video, I love the song. When I see the video, I'm thinking you got these Hollywood people that were getting in, you know, like on the fringes of the band. I guess that's okay, you
I
know,
don't
but
think I'm even familiar with the video.
really, it's cool. You know, Tom's like sitting in an old an old diner, and he's having coffee, and it's raining outside. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Swinging's
Uh,
a great song. Killer
His
yeah,
live.
videos never disappoint. I mean,
right.
No,
he spares no expense.
I'm gonna go with
no,
swinging.
that's fair. I will
Uh,
say Rebels still a great song though.
yeah, it is a great song. I enjoy that one too. All right, so our third matchup of the first round is Straight into Darkness versus Honeybee. And I'll go ahead
Oh,
first, so I'm not the tiebreaker this time.
Oh,
okay.
look at you.
I'm going to go with Honeybee.
Who's next?
What's that?
Which one's
You go
next?
you go next.
Yeah, Thea, you go next.
I have to stand by my choice of Straight into Darkness.
Okay.
It's a
I
good
love
song.
Honeybee, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but
I gotta stand by my choice of Honeybee.
All right.
I knew that's where it was going.
Well, I feel bad because we kind of cheated because the pretense that I gave you earlier, Thea, was his first 6 albums, and then,
Yep.
Is
but
Honeybee
It's all
later
good.
than that?
what's that?
Honeybee is later.
Yeah.
Honeybee is on Wildflowers, I believe.
I love Wildflowers. That album is amazing. God
Yeah.
bless. And I love Echo too, even though apparently
That's
the
the
band,
Divorce album.
yeah, they like Mike even mentioned you know, it's so solemn or it's so melancholy they can't hardly stand it, but it's such a
Yeah,
beautiful album, really.
it is. That's his divorce. That's Petty's divorce album is what Echo is.
Yeah.
That's the one with the room at the top.
Room at the Top, right? And Swinging.
That's one of my yeah. Room at the Top is one of my top 5 favorite Petty songs of all time.
That song
It's a
reminds me
beautiful
of
song.
Martha Washington for whatever reason. After George passed away, she retreated to the attic of Mount
Yeah,
Vernon and never came
yeah,
down.
Huh, I don't think I knew that.
I knew it because
yeah.
when I toured Mount Vernon, yeah.
Uh,
I'd read that somewhere before, but yeah, Room at the Top is one of my favorites. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful song, and I'm so grateful I heard it live twice
Right, because that's
yeah.
on the
rare,
40th
right? I
anniversary.
mean,
My
Yeah,
wife was at a show. Phil's heard this story, I think. At guess it was Hollywood Bowl several years ago. It wasn't the last tour, and someone, it was Kate Hudson requested Room at the Top, and Tom said, "We don't play that one anymore. I don't care who your mama is."
that was probably on the Hypnotic Eye tour, which would have been around 2014. That was the tour they did before
Yeah,
so they in
sounds about right.
2014 they did the Hypnotic Eye tour, then 2016 they did a Mudcrutch album and tour, and then 2017 was the 40th anniversary.
But I think Phil in a Facebook group had that story corroborated by Dana Petty, right?
yes, she did. I relayed your story. I didn't try to steal your story. I mean,
No,
I
no.
said my friend's wife was at the show and explained it and everything, but she did reply to that. So
Yeah,
I,
she
I,
was sitting with her, right?
yeah,
With
shout out to Dana Petty. Let me tell you, um, she is very active on social media with the fans. She responds and comments and talks to us, and even comments on some of our posts and things like that. She's very involved, and she is just a gracious and sweet lady.
yeah, yep, definitely acknowledge her.
Hmm.
Because I've heard people take shots at it for some reason. I don't understand. I don't understand all
There's,
that, but
I
whatever.
don't know.
Yeah,
There's so much drama with that estate. It's sad.
yeah. All right, so our last matchup, Insider versus California. And Aaron, you start off with that one.
I don't know if I know Insider, and California was my pick, so
Mhm.
Well,
yeah.
you need
And
to fix
California's
that
been
and
good to
listen to
me.
Insider.
Well, I like
I'm
Calif.
going,
I might know it and just not know the title.
I'll go
yeah,
Thea. That way that you can be the tiebreaker because I'm going to go with Insider.
and I'm going with Insider since
There you go.
I am the one that submitted that, and it
Right.
is truly a beautiful and haunting duet with Tom Petty and Stevie Nicks. It's beautiful.
The Stevie Nicks duet. I know it.
Yeah.
That one's beautiful. There are two Stevie and Tom duets, and
Hmm.
that's Stop Dragging My Heart Around and Insider. And
Yeah.
Insider is just like heart-wrenching. It's gorgeous.
All right, here we go to final four. Feel a Whole Lot Better versus Swinging. I'll go with Swinging.
Yeah, swinging for me.
Swinging.
Okay.
Our first sweep.
Honey Bee versus Insider.
Hmm.
Thea.
I'm sticking with Insider on this one.
I'm
Okay.
sticking with Honey Bee and putting Phil in the.
Hot
That's
seat.
tough. That's why it's tough when it gets down to this point right here.
Yeah.
Mm. I just love Honey Bee. That's rock. I mean, that's one of the best rockers. And I did see. I didn't see the performance you're talking about, but I did see the Foo Fighters do it on some award show or something, and they knocked it out
Yep.
there too.
It's just a banger.
The banger.
So we'll go Swinging versus Honey Bee.
Ooh.
Aaron.
Honeybee.
Okay.
Yeah, Honey Bee.
All right. It'll be. I'll give one to Swinging, but it's going to be Honey Bee. Honey Bee's the champ.
Yeah. Yep. And it's a valid champ. That's an amazing song. That song just jams.
Right.
Yeah.
And I
Both
can
those songs are
always,
dope.
yeah, all I see in my head is Dave Grohl, just the way he played drums for Nirvana with the hair flying all over the place. That he did that on SNL. It was like you could just tell that he was just like, who am I even? What life is this that I am playing drums for Tom
Mhm.
Petty?
Right.
It's just so good.
He's a good ambassador for rock and roll. I don't know what all I don't know what the blowback is on him or whatever, but
Oh, Dave Grohl?
yeah.
Yeah.
Child out of wedlock with a groupie, I guess.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, okay. That's
And
for another
everybody's big mad.
episode.
Yeah.
It couldn't
Yeah.
be because he hates Courtney
it was
Love,
just-
because everybody hates
no,
Courtney Love. But
It was just the past year or so this broke.
got it. All right, man. It's been fun. I knew it would be. I feel like our side, the energy was a little bit more held back because I didn't have my star here with me. But hopefully we did the best we could.
Hopefully
And,
she's
I
back
tried
for the
to-
next one full strength.
Yeah,
Lisa, I hope I did you justice by squirreling.
you did.
You did some very fine squirreling.
Did some great squirreling there, Thea.
Thanks
Feel
for
like
bringing
we
the
did
book to
cover-
us.
Yeah, I feel like we didn't cover the book properly, but
Eh.
you know, hey, it was a great conversation about rock and roll.
Gotta leave it for people to read themselves.
Right. I think we gave him just enough to whet the
Yeah.
appetite. But Thea, we
Yeah.
can find
I
you
read all
on
the
Rock and Roll
highlights.
Heaven, right?
Yep, Rock and Roll Heaven Pod, admin Thea.
All right.
Right now we're doing a series on Mama Cass.
Yep, I've been enjoying that, and I've been enjoying
Yep.
the slap nuts. I always do the slap nuts, whatever the assignment is. I always do it afterwards.
Yep.
I enjoy doing that. So,
That was a fun episode to record for the slap nuts.
right.
And just a suggestion, you know, sometime maybe we could do and just have rock and roll conversations. You know,
Yeah.
that's not a bad
Yeah.
idea. We have a lot of fun just kind of, you know, spinning out and having conversations about different music and stuff.
Right.
Yep.
We're up for it. All right.
Yep.
All right. You guys have a great night.
You too.
You too.
See you
All right.
guys.
See ya.
Bye,
Bye,
y'all.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
We have social.
Twitter,
Yeah, pod.
Instagram,
Yeah, pod.
Facebook.
Yeah, pod. So let us know. Hit us back. Have a great week.